This is the second of 4 videos. Oh. So that's how it's gonna be, huh? Alright, let's get started. This is the second of 4 videos on the Stalker series. This video will contain spoilers for Stalker Clear and Stalker Shadow Chernobyl. Ukrainian video game developer GSC hit a home run with Stalker Shadow Chernobyl. Many fans would say that it's the best in the series. Its rich atmosphere and haunting environments captivated players. The real-world exclusion zone saw an increase in legal tourism after both Stalker Shadow Chernobyl and Call of Duty 4 had come out. Allegedly, the legal tours of Pripyat added locations seen in these games to the tours. But something else also emerged. Real-life stalkers. Men who would take people on illegal tours of the zone. Not only do these men call themselves stalkers, but so do the power plant workers, military, and legal tour guides. To say that the name is stuck is an understatement. If you watched my last video, this might seem like redundant information. I already talked about what inspired these games. So why am I talking about it now? Well, I need to make it very, very clear how much reach these games had, and how absolutely devastating it is that Clear almost stains this. Clear is seen by many as the black sheep of the trilogy. I might be among them. I don't know if I hate this game, but I know I don't love it. If you do love Clear nothing I say can or should take that from you. I just want you to know that I am not going to be very nice to this game, but I won't just be all negative. From this point forward, I'll be referring to Stalker Clear as Clear and Stalker Shadow Chernobyl as Stalker. Let's begin. Much is left unchanged from Stalker. Many aspects that make a Stalker game are present in Clear Oppressive atmosphere. Check. Unforgiving world. Also check. Bandits. Unfortunately, check. The zone really is the same as it ever was. Many locations from Stalker make a return in Clear with minor or major changes. A great addition was making what used to be a safe path in Stalker a death trap in Clear In the last video I pointed out that in Roadside Picnic, Red says that you could walk the same path 100 times but be killed on your 101st in the zone. Sure enough, I found that roads I used to travel that were safe were now tainted with radiation and traps. Anomalies are just as deadly as last time, but now there's a twist. You see, in Stalker, artifacts could be found all over the place, hidden and out in the open. They'd spawn at a very high rate, and finding them was a breeze. Clear not only requires you to use a gadget to find them this time, but the player must now also walk into or around anomalies to grab them. Is it really worth the risk? Once again, you can attach these artifacts to yourself for added benefits and drawbacks. However, unlike last time, you can no longer freely equip 5 of them at once. You're going to need the correct armor first. Some armors have 0 slots, and others will have 1 to 5. You can upgrade your armor to add more slots. Upgrading armor and weapons is a new addition to Clear In Stalker, you sometimes found special versions of suits with added benefits. The same could also be said about the guns. These unique versions of items do show up again in Clear but now you have the added benefit of modifying your own gear. This is a system that people either love or hate based on their gaming preferences. I neglected to use it a majority of the game, to my own detriment. I'm reluctant to drop money on anything I don't think I'll be keeping in the long run, even if it's my favorite rifle in the game. As a matter of fact, when I did get my favorite rifle in the game, the VSS, I didn't upgrade it. I just saved my money, cause what if I get something better later? And I did. Later on in the game, I got a better version of the VSS that was already almost fully upgraded. So not only did I get a better version of the gun I already liked, I also kept all my money. It's a win-win, right? The downside is that I didn't use this upgrading system that they spent all this time on. I know this is more of a me problem. It's that issue people have where they go, well, what if I need that item later? I can't use it now. This is definitely something that the developers probably can't do anything about, and it's just a mindset that some players get into, myself included. While the UI has changed, it's not too different. They did completely remove the stealth bar's end diagram from the player stance. They also gave the radiation poisoning and bleed out their own fixed location instead of it just flashing on the screen when relevant. A Geiger counter was added, but it's somewhat dubious about how it works. Sometimes it wouldn't warn me until I was already being poisoned, or I wouldn't hear the clicking at all. The minimap works the same way as it did last time. I'm not going to repeat myself again on it. I don't like it. I don't. Clear-Sky added a new threat to worry about now too. Blowouts. Blowouts, or as Clear-Sky calls them, emissions, were actually in Stalker, but only in 2 scripted moments. One was halfway through the story, and the other one was at the climax of the game. GSC did want to put these in Stalker more often, but couldn't manage to do that. Clear-Sky was now their second chance. Despite that the game calls them emissions, I do call them blowouts from time to time out of habit. So if I say either one, just know they're interchangeable. Blowouts are normally caused when a stalker gets too close to the heart of the zone. It's a way for the C consciousness to repel them from getting in and figuring out the truth. If you recall from Stalker, the C consciousness was trying to tap into the noosphere, but messed up and created the zone. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. When too much energy is built up from the power C consciousness holds, it must somehow be expelled. I'll get more into the implications this has on the plot when I cover the story, but as far as gameplay is concerned, it's a wave of insta-death that bakes you alive. In fact, I think I said that almost word for word last time. All you need to know is that it's a giant wave of death that you do not want to be caught in. You'll know when a blowout's about to come. There's no way you can miss it. You'll need to run for your life and find shelter immediately. Your PDA will point where the nearest shelter is, and sometimes the nearest shelter is in enemy-controlled territory. When that happens, you're going to have to find a different hiding spot, and run for your life before it's too late. I love the blowout feature in this game, but if I was forced to find a problem with them, it would be how the world reacts. I've never once come across an NPC that died from a blowout. I also had a really odd moment where I was taking shelter in a basement, only for the blowout to still kill me. I was annoyed this killed me since I was in the safest location one could possibly be in. I was annoyed even further when I had to reload my save and found that the location it wanted me to hide in was out in the frickin' open. Yeah, this sure does look safe, doesn't it? That's enough about blowouts for now. For some insane reason, pistols in this game don't have ADS like they did in Stalker. No, they do this instead. Why is this a problem, you might ask? Well, I like to play Stalker without the reticle. You know, that crosshair that 99% of all FPS games have? Well, since you can't aim using the pistol, you have to use these reticles. That means I have to keep them on when I usually like to keep them off. I like to keep them off because not only do they give away who's good or bad when you point it at them, it also ruins a bit of the aesthetic and atmosphere of the game. But now if I want to use my pistol at all, I have to keep them on. You might tell me this isn't even a big deal, why am I complaining? Well, I'm complaining because it wasn't a problem in the last game, and now it's a problem in this one. So they made a change that didn't have to be made, that just makes the game worse. Aside from this issue I have with pistols, gunplay is pretty much unchanged. Like last time, and like always, I will recommend playing Stalker on the Master difficulty, as it seems to be the way these games are intended to be played. The start of these games on the Master difficulty are very difficult and very punishing. Your guns and armor are awful, and you'll die fast if you're not careful. It's unfair, but these games aren't meant to be fair. I don't know if it's true, but the AI does seem to be improved from Stalker. There were times where I'd be behind cover, and they'd find a way to flank and kill me. They don't just stand a few meters away waiting to be shot this time. Well, sometimes they do, but not as often. They're also far more aggressive now. Some of the early firefights in this game can feel really oppressive to the point where it's painful to play. It's been said that Stalker has made many bad first impressions, but Clear-Sky has made that many bad impressions tenfold, as even fans of Stalker like myself were filtered by the swamps for years. Some of the problems that Stalker had are back. Your starting guns suck. You do start with an AK-74, but 5.45 ammo is so rare that you'll be forced to use the god-awful double-barrel shotgun. And the Makarov pistol you get might as well be a boomerang. It's far more useful than using it as an actual firearm. The swamps are filled with radiation and almost no cover or concealment from the enemy gunfire. These are games where you can be killed in 2 to 3 shots, so you want to find this cover or concealment. Obnoxiously, the tall grass in the swamps also do fuck all to hide where your location is. You might not see the 7 bandits on the other side of the tall grass, but they sure as hell see you. My troubles with how Clear Sky handles gunfights comes down to this. Bleed out. Bleed out was in Stalker, but it was rarely a problem. It was so minor that I didn't even mention it in my video. When you start to see that you're bleeding, you use a bandage to patch it and stop bleeding. Bandages were also used as a small healing item. They were also found on almost every dead NPC in the zone. By the end of the game, it wasn't uncommon to have over 120 of them. Even on Master difficulty, it felt like a non-issue to deal with bleed. Well, Clear Sky went far into the other direction with this. Instead of it being a non-issue, it's a huge issue. Not only will almost every single shot the player gets hit with cause bleed, but it will also take several bandages to take care of. And to add insult to injury, pun intended, they also are very stingy with where they hand bandages out. It's very rare to find NPCs that carry more than 2. Some of this could be attributed to bad armor, but even when you get good armor, hits sometimes will cause you to bleed out a lot. I only managed to make bleed less of an issue when I acquired an artifact that removed bleeding. The problem is that these artifacts are random, so you have to go out of your way to try and find one, and just hope you get it. The artifact did help a lot though, and wounds that used to take 5 bandages only took 1 or 2 now. Getting into cover or concealment is a no-brainer to avoid getting shot, right? Obviously. But now your enemies also have an infinite supply of grenades. Not only that, but these are heat-seeking grenades. While playing Clear Sky, I learned that everyone in the zone is a fucking Ukrainian LeBron James. I think my big problem is Clear Sky is far too focused on combat for my liking. This might seem like an oxymoron. These are first-person shooters after all. Stalker wasn't worried to leave you alone for 20 to 30 minutes. Clear Sky feels like it wants to always be on 11. I wouldn't say it's at the level where it's jingling keys in front of your face all the time, but I definitely feel like they could have toned it down quite a bit. They've made the game world even harsher than before, and it's put me in a bit of a paradox. I want the game to be hard, unforgiving, and even unfair, but not too hard, unforgiving, and unfair. I should be thinking, is this fight worth my ammo? Is it worth a few bandages I have on me? Many times it's just better to run away from the fight instead of getting involved. The issue is Clear Sky encourages you from the start with the faction war system they added. You are literally asked to take part in these fights in a stage of the game where you are barely scraping by. You're free to ignore these cries for help, and I usually do. But for this to be a feature in the game means they want me to be engaged with it. They wanted me to participate. This felt like it came at the cost of the spooky sections of the game in favor of more intense shootouts. Faction wars work by taking out the enemy in an area until they've been pushed out. They counterattack and fight back after some time has passed. Truth be told, outside of the swamp area that you start in, I largely ignored them. Some people find them to be very enjoyable, but as I probably made it perfectly clear, I am not one of those people. At the risk of repeating myself, I'd rather have spooky moments than shootout moments. They kept most locations and added some new ones, but for some insane reason, they removed the bar area from the game. They removed this entire area right here from the game completely. You can still see it on the map too, and the road that normally takes you there just skips it and goes to the area above it. I have no idea what they were thinking when they removed this from the game. They added more vendors to the game, but not all vendors are equally good. Most will rip you off when you try and sell them guns, shortchanging you out of thousands of bucks, and some won't even buy them from you at all. Meaning for a fair deal on the guns, you'll have to go sometimes 20 to 30 minutes out of your way just to sell them for a fair price. A form of fast travel was added to the game in the form of these guys that take you from place to place, but it's for a price. And these guys really nickel and dime you. It's not worth it. Most vendors are found in bases. These bases are also where you can find the people to upgrade your stuff, and also barmen that buy and sell food or vodka. I should also quickly add right here that they removed hunger from the game. Something I also didn't mention in the last video because it was useless. Food now just heals you instead. Now you're probably wondering, what actually happens in this game? Clear Sky is actually a prequel, or as the game calls it, a prologue. It's set 9 to 10 months before the events of Stalker. We're not in control of S.T.A.L.K.E.R, aka the Mark II this time, but the story is still heavily tied to it. You play as S.T.A.L.K.E.R, a mercenary in the zone, while guiding a group of scientists through the swamps, and a mission kills everybody but S.T.A.L.K.E.R. He has somehow survived this blowout, and is saved by the Clear Sky faction. Dr. Phil here explains how it seems to be impossible that S.T.A.L.K.E.R survived.
You survived the emission. That's the first thing I still can't explain. The second thing is that our patrol found you in the swamps, which are essentially endless quicksand. And thirdly, you nearly got torn into shreds by a pack of pseudo-dogs, but our boys got you out just in time. Such a chain of events tells me it's more than just luck.
He also explained who Clear Sky is and what they hope to accomplish.
As I said, we are researchers. We are trying to figure out the nature of the zone, determine the reasons which caused it to appear, and formulate the rules that govern its existence. We are not consumed by a quest for money. We don't seek fields of artifacts, and we're not interested in turf wars with other factions. That is why we're hiding here in the swamps and concentrating on our research.
They only wish to learn about the zone and why it exists. Having already played Clear Sky, one would know that this is because of the Sea Consciousness project, trying to control the Noosphere. But then they screwed up and created the zone by mistake. This game is going to be filled with all kinds of dramatic irony. He goes on to explain how the emission that S.T.A.L.K.E.R survived has somehow changed the zone. Areas in the zone that were once impossible to reach are now easy to access, and safe paths are now no longer safe. He explains that he can't let you leave without a guide. Unfortunately, most of them also have their hands tied. The emission had opened up a way to get into the swamps, and now bandits have invaded the area. Dr. Phil asks for your assistance with dealing with a problem. Some of their men are being attacked at a radio tower by boars. Unfortunately, while you're saving the poor stalkers, another blowout happens. They say that once is happenstance, twice is a coincidence, and 3 times is enemy action. Even if it's just a coincidence that S.T.A.L.K.E.R survived twice, it seems there won't be a 3rd time.
Finally, I'm going to tell you something you already know. The emissions are destroying your nervous system. If they keep reoccurring, you will die, or what's worse, lose your intelligence and your very self.
We're told that these emissions are giving S.T.A.L.K.E.R some sort of power, but it's definitely not superpowers, because he sure as hell isn't bulletproof. Be that as it may, the downside of surviving these emissions is that they're affecting his nervous system. With the uptick of these emissions, he's a dead man walking if nothing is done. Lebedev has a hypothesis on why these upticks of emissions are happening. And I'm sorry, I'll stop calling him Dr. Phil.
I think that the recent events in the zone are related to the fact that someone broke that taboo and made it past the brain scorcher.
Who do we know that would be trying something like that? That's right, it's S.T.A.L.K.E.R, the main character from Stalker. None of our characters know this yet, but Lebedev is correct in believing that the Brain Scorcher has been bypassed. If you recall from Stalker, the Brain Scorcher is something that scrambles your brains and keeps stalkers from getting into Pripyat and the power plant. Lebedev tells S.T.A.L.K.E.R whomever is trying to get deeper into the zone must be stopped before it's too late. The dramatic irony is that we already know that this is going to happen and it's unavoidable. S.T.A.L.K.E.R's reasons for furthering the plot are out of self-preservation. The emissions are slowly killing him, and the doctor tells him that he's already a dead man walking, but helping him stop this will at least buy him some more time. S.T.A.L.K.E.R seems much more involved in this story than S.T.A.L.K.E.R was in Stalker. A lot of what he has to do is favor for a favor. No one does anything for free in the zone, but I will say I find it more interesting than, I have amnesia and I must kill this man. S.T.A.L.K.E.R needs info on a stalker named Fang, a name that should perk your ears up if you've already played Stalker. He's a friend of S.T.A.L.K.E.R after all. Before S.T.A.L.K.E.R can learn more about Fang, he'll need to help out a bit. Like I said, favor for a favor. The cordon is found to be far more hostile than it will become in Stalker. Ukrainian troops at the checkpoint are far more heavily armed. The first time coming here, the player will be gunned down by a PKM within nanoseconds of being spotted. After doing what needs to be done to get info on Fang, S.T.A.L.K.E.R learns that he's been looking for electronic equipment. Unable to buy everything he needed in the cordon, he's told that Fang has gone to the garbage dump, the garbage being a location in S.T.A.L.K.E.R that is teeming with bandits. It's still S.T.A.L.K.E.R's only lead. Sure enough, this place is teeming with bandits. And unlike S.T.A.L.K.E.R, they mug you this time. Fighting back would be very unwise.
Move, damn it, move!
As shitty of a feeling it is to get mugged, it would feel even shittier to get plugged with 5.45 and buckshot. While Fang is nowhere to be found in the garbage, we are pointed in the direction we should go. Freedom Base. Like I said before, no one does anything for free in the zone. So before Freedom will help you out, you need to do a favor for them first. Once you've finished helping them out, they'll repay the favor by telling you where Fang went. Thankfully, Freedom can do better than "he went to that away." They started tracking his PDA by hacking into it. Now S.T.A.L.K.E.R can see exactly where Fang is, ending this stupid game of cat and mouse.
This place is pretty damn good. Look at all these stalkers charging in here like flies to honey. I wonder what they're after.
Yep, you went right into an ambush. Bandits rob you blind and leave you with nothing. Well, almost nothing. You're left with a pistol and a couple of rounds to try and get your stuff back if you dare. Side note, when I play video games where my actions have consequences, I try and take the L, as the kids say, when I fuck up. If I dig myself into a problem, as long as I'm not soft-locked, I'll try and get myself out of it. However, if I feel like I was unfairly cheated, I have no issue reloading a save to redo it. I also have zero problems with other people doing this in games. If you're watching this right now and like the save scum, I don't really care. Have fun. The Bandit ambush was a moment that made me reload a save. The reason? It had nothing to do with my gear being stolen. No. I went back and got my gear, but what I did notice is that something else was missing. It took me another hour and a half to even notice it was gone. My money. All of my money was gone. You can't get your money back. Before, this game was just only annoying me at best. Grenades aside, this was the first time I was actually pissed off at the game. I felt like I was cheated. It logically makes sense that if I track down the guys who just took my money 5 minutes ago, they'll still have my money. I said at the start of this video that I like the game to be unfair, but this isn't unfair, it's cheap. I had an idea though. They can't steal my money if I don't have any money to steal. I reloaded my save, went back to the Freedom Base, just before the ambush, and spent everything I could in upgrading my gun and armor. It didn't matter to me if I was keeping this anymore. I was not letting the game take my money from me. At least I knew for a fact that I was going to get my gear back. With that rant out of the way, S.T.A.L.K.E.R does follow his lead to another PDA with a message from S.T.A.L.K.E.R. The good news is I don't have to follow Fang anymore. The bad news is that S.T.A.L.K.E.R is having the device made to get past the Brain Scorcher. Anyone who played Stalker already knew this was going to happen though. I'll try not to repeat myself on this again, but a running issue I have with this game is knowing what's going to happen before it happens. And this isn't the result of bad writing, but it's the nature of a prequel. I know what will happen to Fang and S.T.A.L.K.E.R. It's already been deterministically decided. Regardless, S.T.A.L.K.E.R is now going to use this device to get past the psi field that scrambles your brains. S.T.A.L.K.E.R is dangerously close to triggering a very powerful and deadly emission, and he was spotted going into the Red Forest. He does give S.T.A.L.K.E.R the slip, and now S.T.A.L.K.E.R must cut through the forest to get to the power plant. The path taken in Stalker will instantly kill you by a psi wave, so you're gonna have to find another way around. Everything about the Red Forest is different this time. It's far more dangerous, and instead of being a shooting gallery like it was in Stalker, well, it's more like this. It's a bit disappointing that the Red Forest is the only place in this game that genuinely put me on edge, and it took me far too long to get here and feel that tense feeling. It's the only moment in the game for me that had the same survival horror vibes that the labs in Stalker had. Hidden in the Red Forest is a man named Forrester, who agrees to help S.T.A.L.K.E.R enter the town named Liminask. This will act as a shortcut to get into the power plant. Much to my disappointment, we won't be going to Pripyat this time. The problem with getting into Liminask, however, is the bandits control the only way in, but with the help of Forrester and the Clear Sky faction, the bandits won't stand the chance. After a long and agonizing firefight with the bandits, the path into Liminask is clear. The town itself isn't as interesting to me as Pripyat is, although it does have more going on aesthetically and visually. I do realize and understand that Pripyat itself in real life looks like many East Bloc cities do, and that it's the history that makes it more interesting to me. According to the fan Wikipedia page, the architecture of Limanesk is based off the real-life Kyiv, which GSC used as reference when making the city. Until recently, that is where their studios were. Limanesk isn't technically a real place, but there is a real small town that's near Pripyat. It's next to a base that's called Chernobyl too. And yes, I do recognize there's a dozen jokes that could be named about a place called Chernobyl too. The real place is much smaller in real life than it is in this game. This is also where the famous Duga 1 is located. Sadly, the rest of the Duga towers aren't in this town. While Limanesk might not look like Pripyat, it's just as dangerous. An all-out war has broken out between Clear-Sky and the Bandits, as S.T.A.L.K.E.R leads them deeper and deeper into the city. As far as the climax for the game goes, this is pretty good. There's just one problem. This isn't the climax of the game. It's not even close. There's still a couple of hours left to go. The same problem that was in S.T.A.L.K.E.R appears here too. They want to milk it for a couple more hours to get some more gameplay in. Oh, by the way, did I mention that Limanesk is a point of no return? I didn't? Oh, well, neither did the fucking game. Hope you packed enough stuff. After killing waves and waves of men, S.T.A.L.K.E.R heads into the most oddly placed hospital in the world. This is the level where I turned on the game and started to hate playing it. I was no longer enjoying myself, and I was just begging for it to be over. The hospital is by far one of the most least enjoyable levels in a video game that I have ever played in my life. It is the definition of filler content. Every problem I had with the combat is amplified here. Insta-kill shots, grenade hell, and almost zero medkits and bandages are dropped by the enemy. It felt like as if the waves of men would never end. And to make matters worse, for some ungodly reason, they make you fight a helicopter. By the time I was finished with the hospital section of the game, it became very clear to me that I never wanted to play Clear-Sky again. You know when you want to replay a game, but then you remember that part you just didn't like at all? That's this level for me. Anytime I think about wanting to play Clear-Sky again, I'm going to think about the hospital and not want to play it. I have read arguments that are in favor of the hospital fight. The defense being, it's the monolith pushing to make sure nobody makes it into the Chernobyl power plant. And my argument is this. We already had that big push from them. In Limanesk, after you get done with the bandits, the monoliths show up to try and stop you. I'd argue having a longer battle in an urban center like that is much more interesting than having it in this cramped hospital that's in the middle of nowhere. All this hospital fight does is frustrate me and make me feel like it's redundant and just padding. I find it very disappointing that both games have underutilized their urban locations. In both games, they seem to want to rush you along as fast as possible to get to the Chernobyl power plant. In Clear-Sky, by the time I made it to the power plant, I was so fatigued that I just wanted the game to be over. But as the saying goes, in for a penny, out for a pound. I neglected to mention this last time, but the power plant has a long, drawn-out, painful slog of fight that's used to pad the endings out. I should have called it what it was in that video. Filler. And guess what? Lightning strikes twice because it's filler this time too. They do the same agonizing fight again, except this time there's a time limit. You need to shoot and stop S.T.A.L.K.E.R before he makes it inside the power plant. He's given S.T.A.L.K.E.R the slip one too many times, and this will be the last. This fight was extra painful because I was so limited on my medkits and I had no way of getting more. Some of this might be a skill issue, but I know I'm far from the first person and I will not be the last to bitch about this fight at the end of Clear-Sky. It's been going on since 2008. I finally hit a wall when I soft-locked myself on accident, and I had finally said, fuck it. I reloaded an old save before I had screwed up, and tried a new strategy. Instead of running after him, I'm gonna camp right here and mag dump into the sneaky breaky prick before he could run away. It took a few tries, but I managed to do it. Some might consider this cheesing. I don't really care. My reward was an unsatisfying ending, too.
S.T.A.L.K.E.R side protection has been disabled. That ought to stop him. Now we just wait and see what happens. How are the reading? Any drop in the level of anomalous activity? Yeah, I didn't expect anything like this. Anomalous activity is through the roof. But the zone was supposed to calm down. Ah! What's going on? My head's about to explode! Ah!
S.T.A.L.K.E.R is killed by a blowout, along with most of Clear Sky faction. Their deaths are in vain. Sherlock is taken by the sea consciousness and brainwashed. The opening of Stalker is now kicked into motion. This was very clearly going to happen, and I promise I won't bring up dramatic irony again, but what else could happen? We know Sherlock has to fail, and we know he has to be brainwashed because the events of Stalker were going to happen. The only way to not know any of this was going to happen is to play Clear Sky first, something I would never recommend, even at gunpoint. Clear Sky is a little more polished than Stalker. Well, maybe only a little bit. While a lot of the bugs are gone, this game has some infamous game-breaking bugs. The kind of bugs that make you have to start your game over if you're not careful. I almost hit one myself. For this mission, you need to take over a base and pull a lever. Well, I took over the base, but I wasn't able to pull the lever. I tried everything. Reloading my save, reloading my game, checking over the entire base in case I missed someone. I tried everything. I had to resort to what I didn't want to do, going back a couple of saves and redoing the entire mission. Lucky me that I made it a habit to rotate my saves and make them as often as I can. I was pissed I had to redo this long fight, but it was the only time I had a problem like this that wasn't self-inflicted. Last time I said not to mod Stalker in your first run of the game. I also didn't play Clear Sky modded, and many might say that I'm an absolute madman for doing this. I feel it would be disingenuous for me to recommend a mod that I never used, but lots of people recommend playing Clear Sky with the Stalker Reclamation project. They say it fixes a lot of the bugs and problems, and you can play it on a mostly vanilla playthrough still, or so I've read. What more can I really say about Clear Sky? At the start of this video I said that I don't know if I hate this game, but I know I don't love it. I have many problems with Clear Sky, but I just can't bring myself to hate it. The lack of anything really memorable is a shame. There's also no labs in this game at all, which is a real shame. If they can retcon and fudge new locations into the game, surely they could have snuck a lab or two in that S.T.A.L.K.E.R could find that the marked one never did. And I know I'm coming off like I hate this game, when really I'm just disappointed and a bit angry with it. Walking and sneaking around the zone is still fun. The locations are still interesting regardless if they're mostly reused. I actually find the side missions in this game to be quite enjoyable, especially working with the factions. It seems as though they really added more to it. You could join factions in the last game, but it didn't really feel like you were really part of it. This time it does. At least it did for me. I like how you can feel the personalities of not only the faction itself, but the NPCs that are part of those factions. For instance, the Armorer for Duty is a complete jackass that everybody hates, but they have to tolerate. This contrasts with Freedom, whose Armorer is much more laid back and likes to joke around, even if he annoys some of his friends sometimes.
Yo, A-Shot, you get a walk frame over here or what? That will be $20. You cheapskate. Alright, get him from the Commandant. Come again? So how about it, A-Shot? You want it, you get it, okay? Move your ass! You're a real jerk, you know that? You're just sitting there doing nothing all day. Hey, you go suck my... Cut the bullshit, you bozos! You're making the whole place sound like a used car dealership.
This game world is filled with so much that I enjoy, but none of this can make up for the parts that I find unbelievably frustrating. I'd much rather just play Shadow Chernobyl again. So I don't love this game, and I don't hate this game. I don't even know if I like or dislike it. I guess it's unclear how I feel. There is no clear sky, really. Matter of fact, it's all cloudy.